This is a typical gas flame. What I'd like you to do is guess what you think the temperature at the top of that flame is. That's where it's the hottest. As you can see, some of the tips are white, and as it gets further down, it becomes blue. Any guesses? No, 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 that's wrong. No, 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 that's wrong too. It's 5,000 degrees. That's right, 5,000 degrees. The bottom is about 3,000 degrees. You see how it's blue down there when we start to turn it down? That's about 3,000 degrees. Now think about what it's going to take to get a steak or a hamburger up to 130 degrees when you're dealing with 5,000 degrees Fahrenheit of flame.
That's pretty sobering, isn't it, when you think about it? You're dealing with a tremendous amount of heat. Now, why doesn't the pan basically melt? Well, because it can only take so much and then it starts to go off into the air. So a lot of that heat is dissipated. That's why it gets hot in your kitchen, because that heat is going all over the place. Now, let's take a look here at our flame. Now, there's a difference between a flame that comes out of a gas stove and one that comes off of wood or charcoal. It can actually be hotter from wood or charcoal. There's also a difference between the tip of the flame and the ambient temperature. Once that flame dissolves and a new one takes its place, it's gone. So it's not going to actually heat up something to its own temperature. So that's what ameliorates the situation. But as you can see here, there's this orange part on the bottom, and that is the coolest part of the flame. I don't mean cool in terms of cool, I mean, not as warm. So, what have you learned here? All right, you've learned that you've got to respect your heat source. Now, there's a difference between direct heat and indirect heat. If you have a pan that is 300 degrees and you put something in it, that's going to heat up much faster than if you have a 300-degree oven and you put something in it. It's going to take 3, 4 times as long to cook it in the oven because the ambient temperature isn't concentrated in one part of the food, and that is the pan it's in. Another thing that you really should learn, and you're going to do this by taking the temperature, is at what point is something cooked the way you want it? If you like it medium rare, you're going to want it around 130, 128. If you want it a little more done, it's going to be 136, 137. Now, that may not seem like a big difference, but when you see the difference in the meat, it is tremendous. It's absolutely unbelievable. Just 3 or 4 degrees can make a difference. Now, poultry has to be cooked at a higher temperature, although sometimes it's way too high a temperature. Some recipes recommend 165 degrees for poultry, which is ridiculous. First of all, if you're worried about bacteria, it's killed at 135 after it's been subjected to it for 2 or 3 minutes. So I like to cook poultry at about 140. That means that the chicken breast is going to be slightly pink. That's fine. You're not getting salmonella from chicken breast that's slightly pink. So let's move on from there. Plus the fact it's moister, it's more tender, and it has more flavor. The more you cook it, the more you cook out the flavor, and that's what you want. Now, fish is a totally different animal in many ways, I guess. Now, the point here is that you want fish cooked at 115 degrees, not much more than that and not much less. That way, it's still firm, it's flaky, and it's cooked. And some fish can be slightly undercooked and should be, especially scallops and shrimp, because you start to overcook them and you get little pieces of balsa wood. And if that's what you'd like to eat, then please do so, but not on my watch, because I am a fanatic about fish and about chicken and any other kind of fowl. I don't like things overcooked. Now let's talk about vegetables for a minute. Vegetables obviously have to be cooked a little bit more, but not all vegetables are created the same. You're going to cook carrots a lot longer because they're firmer, they're more fibrous than zucchini is, and you're going to cook them at a higher temperature to get them to where they're going to be a little soft. And that softness is also up to a matter of personal taste. Do you want it really, really soft, or do you want it a little crunchy? That's your call. I'm not going to make it for you. I'm just going to tell you that you got to be careful about how you cook all these things. One of the best ways to cook vegetables is sous vide in a plastic bag that's been pressurized and dumped in water, usually about 170 to 173 degrees, and cook for 5 or 6 hours. And the flavor that comes out of there is out of this world. It's the only time that you're ever going to use the juice that comes out of whatever you're cooking sous vide. Everything else you're going to throw away. Meat, fish, doesn't make any difference what it is. Fowl, who cares? But something happens with the water in vegetables. And I, of course, help it out with, some dried herbs, some butter, and salt and pepper. We're going to show you how to do that later on. But right now, just remember, your heat source is very, very important. Pay attention to it and honor how hot that sucker is.